a man in the doorway. I was about 4 or 5 years old and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I liked sleeping in her bed whenever I was staying with her. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of a hallway directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, and my mom had a window open in her room that was directly behind the bed. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the doorframe of my mom's room. Her door was open and you could partially see into my bedroom. It was strange because our cat was a huge snuggler and was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned to face my mom and wake her up. In the 3 to 4 seconds it took her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, we both looked back up in the doorframe and there was a man standing by my open door, making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor, so it was maybe a 3-foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed and we were able to start screaming for help, and someone called 911. The police came but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe the man must have exited that way. But the strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door that night with the deadbolt and the chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up our water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep. Dog-loving ghost. I was sitting in my room after getting out of work on the 2nd floor. Little brother is downstairs watching TV, and the dog is in the hallway outside my door sleeping. All of a sudden, the dog starts making all kinds of racket, jumping round, barking, clacking nails, howling. I go to get up to see what's up, and I hear, "Aw, that's a good girl," in a male voice. Didn't sound like my little brother, so I go, "Oh, you're home early," thinking it is my dad's friend or our roomie as I open the door. As soon as I'm out there is no one at all but the dog wagging her tail staring at the empty end of the hallway. Little brother comes upstairs to yell at me for getting his dog riled up. Said he heard the same voice thinking it was me or our roommate. We did a once-over of the house with my butterfly knife and his BB gun, but there was nobody there. The story still gives me chills to this day. Last visit. Our elderly neighbor fell sick and had to go to the hospital. Her niece asked us to take care of her dog while she was away. So after school, work, and dinner, me and my brother were sent over to make sure he was doing well. It was late at night in this weird old lady's house. My brother was in the shed with the dog, and I was in the living room looking at the creepy old photos on the mantelpiece. What follows is entirely true. I heard the door creak, and then a woman's voice called out the dog's name. I freaked out and turned around. Obviously, there was nobody about. Thought maybe it was my neighbor's niece, but it had that weird, did I hear that outside my head or inside it, echo to it. So I also thought I was just letting the creepy house get to me. But then I went out to my brother, and he was freaking out too because he had heard a woman's voice inside the shed with him saying, "Oh, there you are." We both agreed the voice had that weird in-your-head sound to it, and we were convinced that there were ghosts in that place. We left the dog in the shed and went home and were greeted by our dad, who told us the neighbor's niece had just called to say the neighbor had passed away in the hospital a few hours prior. Who's there? A few years ago, I was home alone at nighttime. I was watching TV in the living room when I heard the doorbell ring. Whenever I hear the doorbell ring, especially when I'm home alone, I am cautious to answer it. I walk up to the people without turning on the porch light so they don't know if anyone is actually home or not and look through. It's very dark, but I can see a small figure doing a dancing motion of some kind, dipping down and oscillating its arms outwards. It's kind of like a person moving their arms like wings gracefully. It was dark outside, but this figure was more opaque so I could see what was going on. After a few seconds, I stopped looking through the peephole because it was too freaky to look at. I regained some courage and looked back through, and whatever it was gone. To this day, I still don't know what that was, and I get freaked out just thinking about it. What made him leave in such a rush? There's an abandoned house next to mine. The previous owner moved to California 25 years prior and never sold it. I got a flashlight, gloves, and pushed the window open and went inside, starting with the basement. In the basement was a grand piano. It still played, but it was very much out of tune. Old World War II memorabilia, what seemed to be a signed Elvis poster, some other really cool shit that no one should ever leave behind. There's basically a whole story in that basement, including a broken wedding picture frame and instruments everywhere. On the main floor was an unmade bed, molded food still left in the fridge, and on the stovetop, half-empty beers turned solid, lights that hadn't been turned off everywhere. Then I started walking upstairs when I heard crying from one of the side rooms. That's when I freaked out and ran out of the place, and I haven't gone back since.